bookworms, I'm Becca, and welcome to my first annual Reading Wrap-Up Book Awards. I'm still workshopping the name. What should we call this thing? The bookies? The golden bookmark? Bounding found? I don't know. We'll figure it out later. Anyway, I have always seen people doing this style reading wrap-up for the end of the year where they theme it after an award show, and I have wanted to do this probably since I started BookTube. So this year I figured I'd give it a try. I'm trying to push myself outside of my creative comfort zone, if you will. So let's just jump right into it with our first category, which is Best New to Me Author. And the nominees are Andy Weir for Project Hail Mary, because if you can make math equations interesting to read, you've got me. Elise John for Orphea and Eurydice, which had me saying, move over Song of Achilles and Circe. There's a new mythology favorite in town. Henry Oak for Open Throat, who is, I think, the only person that can make a mountain lion relatable. R.F. Kuang for The Poppy War. I don't know why I put out for reading her works for so long. And Matt Dinneman for Dungeon Crawler Carl. Never in my life did I think I would be reading and enjoying a D&D inspired book. And the winner is R.F. Kuang for The Poppy War. I just love the way that R.F. Kuang's mind works. I really admire the way that she's able to work in real-life historical occurrences into a more fantastical setting. Her writing is immersive and a little bit dense, but still easy to read at the same time. I decided to pick The Poppy War as a winner because out of all of the other nominees, The Poppy War made me want to pick up more of R.F. Kuang's works and not simply just continue on with the Poppy War series. Category number 2 is Best Returning Author. This award is going to go to an author that I read more of their works this year. And for this category, we have 4 nominees. The nominees are Suzanne Collins for Sunrise on the Reaping. A new Hunger Games book as an adult was not on my bingo card. Jenna Evans Welch for Spells for Lost Things. Salem, Massachusetts, A Scavenger Hunt, Family Secrets, First Love, and All Things Witchy. Sign me up. V.E. Schwab for Barrier Bones in the Midnight Soil. Lesbian Vampires, Say Less. And T. Kingfisher for What Feasts at Night. We went from a botanical horror to a paranormal entity in the damp, dark woods, and I am here for it. And the winner of Best Returning Author goes to V.E. Schwab for Barrier Bones in the Midnight Soil. This should not come as a surprise at all. The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue is one of my all-time favorite books. And honestly, V.E. Schwab can do no wrong in my eyes. Barrier Bones in the Midnight Soil is a haunting gothic tale following 3 women and shows how love, decay, and desire can reshape who we are in the dark. The next category is Most Emotional Damage, and this is going to go to a book that had me in shambles all year long. There are 4 nominees for this category, and the nominees are Orphea and Eurydice. Even though you know how the myth ends, it still cuts so deep. Barrier Bones in the Midnight Soil. I felt so deeply for all of the women in this story. The Poppy Wars, Rin's turmoil, and the depictions of war were really tough to read. In Sunrise on the Reaping, it's Haymitch's backstory. What could possibly go wrong? And the award for Most Emotional Damage goes to Sunrise on the Reaping. I had to do it to him. I finished this book at 2 a.m. with an infected eye injury. Okay? I could barely see both from my infection and also through my tears. Did the emotional damage probably come from nostalgia and connection with the series? Absolutely. However, looking back over the course of the year, all I can think of when I think of this book is crying. That's it. That's all I remember. Well, not all I remember. I remember the parts that made me cry. And honestly, I do not know how I'm going to make it through the movie. In the next category is Best Horror Novel. I read a lot of horror books, and so it was really difficult to pick just one. But again, we have 4 nominees for this category, and the nominees are What Feasts at Night, Full of Rot, Decay, and Supernatural Nightmares. Ring Shout, White Supremacists Reimagined as Actual Demons. So good. Don't Let the Forest In. I think I just tend to gravitate towards botanical horror. And Pen Pal, which is a bind-up of a no-sleep story that was one of my favorites from almost 2 decades ago. It's one of my favorite books in my entire collection. And, without further ado, the winner of Best Horror Novel goes to Ring Shout. Ring Shout is set in 1920s Georgia and follows a group of black women that use magic, music, and rage to fight demonic manifestations of white supremacists and historic evils. I really enjoyed the writing of this book and how the author used supernatural horror to confront real issues of racism and supremacy. It is the perfect book to read after watching and loving a movie like Sinners. And the next category is Best Graphic Novel. I also read a lot of graphic novels, but I didn't read a ton this past year. There are only 3 nominees for this category, and the nominees are Leap, because of the art style and a great use of a color story with characters that I wanted to root for. Seance Tea Party, which perfectly captures the feeling of growing up. And Things in the Basement, for everyone who felt like their basement was another world as a kid. The winner of Best Graphic Novel goes to Leap. Leap may just be one of the best graphic novels I've ever read. One of the biggest complaints that I tend to have when I'm reading a graphic novel is that they go by too quickly, and I have a hard time feeling connected to the story. However, I didn't have that problem at all throughout this book. It had characters that I was rooting for, it had a storyline that I was invested in, and the artwork was so beautiful. You can kind of tell from the colors on the cover with the pinks and the purples that's carried throughout the story. And I just love when a graphic novel uses one specific color or a couple specific colors all throughout. In Leap, we follow 2 girls that end up as roommates at a fine arts conservatory. They're both in pretty toxic relationships of different kinds, and throughout the course of the book, they individually fall apart and then end up growing closer through it and putting each other back together. It's a great book with queer representation, found family. I just cannot recommend this enough. The next category is Most Engaging Audiobook. I don't really listen to a lot of audiobooks, but I did get into immersive reading this year, which is when you listen to the audiobook as you are reading the physical book. And I had a couple that really stood out to me. So the nominees for Most Engaging Audiobook are Girl 11. Part true crime podcast, part murder mystery, this book is perfect for fans of Sadie. Project Hail Mary. Sarcastic, witty, and real. I think about Rocky a few times a week. The Anthropocene Reviewed, a book of different aspects of humanity rated on a 5-star scale and narrated by John Green himself, and made for a unique listening experience. And Dungeon Crawler Carl. Jeff Hayes is a god. And the winner of Most Engaging Audiobook goes to Dungeon Crawler Carl. I literally was shocked to find out that this series is narrated by one person. I've been out here telling people that it is a fully casted book, but we just have an incredible voice actor. Jeff Hayes is truly a god. I know I said that I don't really listen to a lot of audiobooks, but with the Dungeon Crawler Carl series, it is the only time that I've ever felt compelled to listen to the audiobook while I'm reading the physical book. If I'm not listening to the audiobook at least for a little bit, I feel like I'm missing out. And I honestly think that if you don't supplement the audiobook, at least for small portions of the series, you're doing yourself a disservice. And the next category is Most Disappointing. They can't all be winners, right? And I just want to say that out of the 34 books that I read in 2025, I have 7 nominees for this category. So, let's just get right into it. The nominees for Most Disappointing Book are Hunting Prince Dracula. I loved the first one. I actually fell asleep for a chunk of this book. What the Woods Took. The author is trying to do too much in my opinion. I didn't love the very serious topic of wilderness therapy programs turned into a cryptid horror. Laura Dean keeps breaking up with me. The relationship was so toxic and the main character was so messy, I could barely get through it. Welcome to the Hunam Dong Bookshop. I love healing fiction, but this one was a bit of a slog. And Don't Let the Forest In. The lines between reality and fairy tale were so blurred that I had no clue what was going on. Camp Damascus. I wanted to love it, but there was so much happening and nothing felt cohesive. And What Stalks the Deep, the weakest of the series so far. And the winner of most disappointing book is... Wait a second. Could this be? It's a tie. The winners are Laura Dean Keeps Waking Up With Me and Camp Damascus. I disliked all of the books on this list, but if I'm being completely honest, these two books are the only ones that I get angry that I still have. I don't like looking at them. And the next category is Most Surprising. The nominees are Girl 11. I buddy read this with my coworker at her recommendation. I was skeptical, but ended up enjoying the experience. Open Throat. I didn't expect to relate so much to a literal mountain lion. Everything is tuberculosis. John Green somehow makes tuberculosis interesting to learn about. And Project Hail Mary. I was so nervous to read this and shocked at how much I loved it. And the winner of Most Shocking Book of the Year goes to Project Hail Mary. Project Hail Mary is another one of those books that I just find myself recommending to anyone that hasn't read it yet. And since we're talking about it, now's the perfect time to pick it up because the movie is coming out soon. Don't let the sci-fi elements turn you off either because the writing is easily digestible, immersive, and engaging. You really feel like you are there the whole time with the main character. And the sense of urgency is ever present. I was on the edge of my seat for the entire read. If you are thinking about picking up Project Hail Mary yourself, I highly recommend the audiobook. I can't say why, just trust me. The next category is Best Nonfiction. In 2025, I only ended up reading 2 nonfiction books, both by John Green. So, the nominees are The Anthropocene Reviewed. Ratings on everything from teddy bears to sunsets. It will make you look at everything around you in a new lens. And Everything is Tuberculosis. John Green makes gaining a base understanding of the tuberculosis epidemic and its effects on humanity easily accessible. There's no reason not to read this. And the winner of Best Nonfiction goes to The Anthropocene Reviewed. The Anthropocene Reviewed is pretty much everything I could ask for in a book. I am a huge fact girly, and I love that John Green not only tells you why he relates to the different topics discussed in the book or why it's important to humanity, but he gives you a little history on it as well. So you're learning a little bit about the history of ginkgo trees or teddy bears or the Piggly Wiggly, which, did you know, is the very first supermarket chain? As I mentioned before, the audiobook is narrated by John Green himself, and it's such a bittersweet, melancholic, weirdly nostalgic book about how we are all connected as humans and on a planetary level that I could not bring myself to listen to more than the introduction without crying. If you, like so many others right now, are looking for a reason to hope, to believe that there is still goodness in the world, consider picking up The Anthropocene Reviewed. The next category is Best Book About Rage. I was looking at all the books that I read this past year, trying to find common denominators, and I realized that I read a lot of angry books. So, the nominees for Best Book About Rage are Children of Blood and Bone, Systemic Injustice, Reclaiming Stolen Identity, and a lot of righteous anger. The Poppy War for its generational trauma, Vengeance, and The Cost of Power. Open Throat for exploring rage as an instinctive energy that demands release. There's both anger at external injustices, but also internal struggles with identity and belonging. Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil for exploring how our anger can corrode you from the inside out. And finally, Ring Shout, where rage in the story is both personal and collective. It's not simply anger, but a source of power. And the award for Best Book About Rage goes to The Poppy War. Even though Rin is a highly flawed character, her grief and anger is unmistakable. For Rin, anger is portrayed as both a blessing and a curse. Her anger is what propels her through the story, but when she uncovers a hidden power that is fueled by rage, we start wondering about the cost of unchecked rage and how anger can perpetuate cycles of violence. The next category is Best Self-Discovery. I love a good coming-of-age book, and there were some good ones this year. There are 3 nominees for this category, and the nominees are Old Enough, for exploring the growing pains of moving away to college, finding yourself and your identity, and confronting uncomfortable truths. Late, because if you define yourself by your relationship or achievements, who are you without them? And Seance Tea Party, for when you want to hang on to your childhood, but all your friends are moving on without you. Where do you fit in? And the winner of Best Self-Discovery goes to Old Enough. Maybe it's because I also went away to college, like the main character in this book, and he had to deal with a lot of similar things that she went through, like making new friends and discovering who I am independent from where I'm from. This book really resonated with me. It is raw, it is real, it is unflinching. The main character is messy and makes mistakes and learns from those mistakes sometimes and grows from them, kind of. I really like this book. I'm glad that I read it. It was on my list for quite a while. Definitely check the trigger warnings before jumping in though. The next category is Best Overall Journey. Another thing I noticed that a lot of my books had in common this past year was that several of the characters went on different journeys. And I found that interesting, so I wanted to highlight it. The nominees for Best Journey are Orphea and Eurydice, a gender-bent retelling of Orpheus and Eurydice. It's just as tragic as the original myth. Project Hail Mary, on a literal journey through space to save Earth. Catabasis, because they journeyed to hell and back, literally. And Things in the Basement, the most epic adventure to find a lost sock. And the winner of Best Overall Journey goes to Catabasis. It's like Dante's Inferno, but make it dark academia. At one point, R.F. Kuang even says that Pride is a library. It felt like the character's literal journey through hell was a metaphor of the academic journey of going through graduate school and doing your dissertation, which I thought was very smart. Does it read like an academic text? Yes, it does, and I loved every minute of it. I feel like R.F. Kuang gets a lot of complaints of being pretentious, and rightfully so, but that doesn't make her books any less enjoyable. Again, I really loved this one, and it only made me want to read more books by her. I'm a huge fan. And that brings us to the final category, which is Best Book of the Year. We read a lot of good books this past year and a lot of not so good books. It was really difficult to narrow down my picks and nominees for this category, but somehow I was able to narrow it down to 4 books. So the nominees for Best Book of the Year are Sunrise on the Reaping, The Anthropocene Reviewed, Dungeon Crawler Carl, and Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil. And the winner of Best Book of 2025 goes to Dungeon Crawler Carl. It was so hard to choose because I loved all 4 of the nominees so much. While Sunrise on the Reaping and Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil were really good contenders because I love the authors, I've read books by those authors before, they felt like a shoo-in. And The Anthropocene Reviewed literally became a part of me, but at the end of the day, I had to go with Dungeon Crawler Carl. I am obsessed with this series, you guys. I am obsessed. It's all I want to talk about. It's all I want to read. It's all I want people to talk to me about. It feels like when I was reading The Hunger Games or Twilight or any of those really popular series at the peak of their popularity, that's what reading Dungeon Crawler Carl feels like right now. It feels like a weird sense of community. It's niche, but it's also not. I can buy merch at freaking Hot Topic. I truly just cannot put into words how good this series is, and I cannot wait to continue on with it in 2026. So there is my first ever book award show. I don't know. We need to figure out a title. So if you have any good ideas for what we can title this award show, let me know down below in the comments. I loved doing this. I think it was a really fun way to kind of wrap up the year, and talk about all the different books that I read and highlight some of my favorites and maybe not so favorite books of the year in a fun way. This was great, but that's it. That's all I have for you guys today, and I will see you next time. Bye.